Good morning, everyone. This is Uche Joku, and welcome to this episode of the Sneaker Principle Podcast. So, it's been a while since I last intentionally created an actual podcast. I've done videos on my YouTube channel under the moniker of the the Sneaker Principle Podcast, because um, I want to keep that title, the podcast itself. Even though I might not be necessarily creating content that is actually a podcast, I might just be doing a video that is by me, and I just want to just kind of keep that name alive. But it's time. It's time for me to get back to the original intention of the podcast. And not only that, it has to do a lot with the fact that a lot of people keep asking me that question, like, "Hey, are you still doing a podcast?" Um, and it's been since 2020, since I believe I first um, created an episode and posted it. It was an interview, um, and since then, um, I definitely haven't created as much as I should have. Life lifed, and not only that, it's been a uh, difficult space to be in as a content creator who is a public school principal, because of the um, caution that I took with making sure that I didn't get in trouble. I'm going to be honest. I think honesty is the best policy in this situation. There is often fear with educators around making sure you're not breaking any rules, that you're not getting undue attention um, by creating content or um, engaging in social media, which I think is kind of weird, because we live in a world where we all consume social media. It's part of our existence. It's part of our lives. Um, and it's, to me, it's strange that educators, people who tend to be considered the most educated in society, are not in that space. If anything, you have people who are uneducated or not as educated in that space, creating content and creating spaces that completely cause more harm than good. And and I think it's important to create spaces for voices that can actually do good. And if we say that educators are people who we um, give reverence to and we value, why are they not allowed, or at least why is there a perception that creating content or posting any kind of um, information that can be helpful to the greater good, why that's a bad thing, or why that needs to be controlled? So uh, I know that I need to, if I can't just say these things without actually living according to the words that I am sharing right now. Excuse me. So I I'm deciding to um, set aside my concerns, my fears, and my self doubt, and get back to it. The question now is whether or not this space is going to be a space in which I am doing interviews, or this is just a solo um, kind of a vlog style podcast where I just kind of talk on my own about whatever is in mind, or whatever the topic may be of the day, or whether I've been co-hosting to have conversations, or as I originally started this podcast about interviewing people and having conversations, kind of like a Joe Rogan style. Um, which is weird that's a Joe Rogan style. Interviews have always been happening, so people having conversations and one person inquiring more about the other is not a new thing. But however, it's this time around is going to be different, because I really want to explore uh, just spaces that we tend not to talk about as much, as educators. Spaces that I believe educators have a very unique perspective on, but we very cautious about engaging or sharing our thoughts and beliefs because actually I don't even know why we do that. I really don't. Um, I'll be honest with you. I want to hear more from educators. I want to hear more from teachers, from administrators. Let me take that back. Not administrators, but school leaders, people who lead school communities. I want to hear more from them. And there is a difference between a school leader and a administrator. I'll be honest with you, there is a big difference. Administrator is somebody who just administers, somebody who just manages. It's like and no offense to to a McDonald's or a fast food restaurant manager, but there's a difference between someone who is leading a space and and is constantly in a space of innovation and finding ways to improve things and move things forward and grow and being growth oriented versus somebody who's just administrating and maintaining, um, being given um, um, matrices to to matrices by which to follow for the purpose of a particular outcome. So if you're a McDonald's manager, your job might be just to make sure that things are open on time, that there's an efficiency of service, and and that um um that the French fries and burgers get to the customers. And if you're efficient enough, you can serve more people and make more money in that branch versus a maybe an owner might say, an owner manager, somebody who's more vested into the business might say, my job is to be the best McDonald's branch in the county or be the most competitive in making sure that we get more of the market share. And not only that, when our customers come in, they're so happy with us that they become return customers and they feel like they're family. And hopefully if we do this right, we can expand to another branch so that we can, serve all the people who want to come in here. But now they can't come in because there's a line around the block. Like that kind of thinking versus managing a space versus growing a space, I think, and making a space, not just growing it, but making a space something that is a staple in the community. I think there's a difference between a school leader and a school administrator. I consider myself a school leader and not an administrator. Um, do I do administrative things? Yeah, there's things I have to do that are under the category of administration. But the vast majority of what I do is from the lens of community leadership and being part of supporting the growth of my school community. And this is important because um, those perspectives are often not heard. What happens is you have people who are very intelligent, very smart, and principals and assistant principals and superintendents and teachers and teacher leaders who are very intelligent and who are doing very amazingly innovative things and have very unique perspectives on the world and what we need to teach our children, how we need to teach our children, how we need to prepare them for what's ahead of them. But you don't ever hear from them. If you hear from them, it's around things that are very superficial. And I'll give an example. I think this is probably not the best place to search for these examples on social media. When I look up school principals or I look up teachers, I see things like videos about people complaining about the job, mostly from teachers or those who've walked away from the profession. I see people talk about curriculum and and um, and or social emotional learning. All these products um, and grounding their expertise around these products. I don't really hear people being human beings. I don't hear stories of school leaders who say, hey, this is where I started from. This is how I got to this place. This is who I was as a child. This is what inspires me. This is what motivates me. These are the things that has led to me being here right now. I don't hear that. I don't hear people who inspire me. I see people who are working on training others to continue doing things the way that everyone has done it for years, even though some of the language might sound great and innovative, but at the end of the day, rarely do I come around someone in these spaces that makes me say, whoa, I got to rethink or have to rethink how I do what I do in my school building, how we do what we do in our district, because this innovation over here is just blowing our minds away. And think about this. Think about how many schools there are in this country, how many school leaders, how many educators. We should take over YouTube. We should be all up in Instagram and Facebook. I mean, there should be so many of us just engaging in conversations, inspiring parents to do things differently at home. You know, apply different methods to make sure that their child are fully educated and well-rounded. Um, but we don't hear from any of them. There are over 1,800 schools in New York City alone. Then let's think about all the major cities: Chicago, Atlanta, um, Houston, Dallas, Los Angeles, San Diego. I'm talking about, like, San Francisco. If you count, these are places on the outskirts. We're not even talking about what's in the middle across states. If you counted every school in America, and every school produced one person who's creating amazing content that inspires other educators, man, you could have your own. We could literally take a giant chunk of the YouTube market under our control. Because one thing to remember too is, as educators, we're not just educators. We're so much more. We're so much more. I'm sorry, no. Let me take that back. I'm not talking about educators. We're not just teachers, a science teacher, a math teacher, a assistant principal of operations, an assistant principal of instruction, the principal of lower schools or middle schools or high schools. We're not just our titles. We're musicians, we're artists, we're writers, we're cooks, you know, we're sommeliers, sommeliers. Listen, I know a superintendent who's a sommelier. I think I'm saying it right. Someone who's an expert in wines. We are we are we are tech enthusiasts. We are philosophers. We're so much more than just a position. And imagine if we presented from our expertise, wrapped around our skill sets as educators. How many children could we inspire? How many parents could we inspire? How many people in general could we inspire? Because we are able to do things that most people can't do. We're able to present information in a way that's digestible by our students, whether we're talking about pre-K students all the way through college students. And I have to include you, educators, teachers, and professors in college level. We should all be creating content. We should all have a sneaker principle type podcast where we are able to, in those spaces, to really engage an audience. And we can still be fun. We can do TikTok videos. We can we can Snapchat. We can Snapchat. We should be able to Snapchat segments of our lessons that we're doing in our classrooms, activities that are happening. Creating a virtual space, where teachers can see, whoa, Mr. Brown in Wisconsin is doing this incredible work around, horticulture and and gardening in Wisconsin, and Miss Brown, who's in San Francisco, should be able to reach out and say, hey, I saw your video. How can I? Oh, how did you? These are the things that I think these spaces could be for. So as I look at least specifically the Sneaker Principle podcast, I'm asking myself, how do I, ensure that I am creating content that matters to people? But I think the real question is, how do I create content that allows me to be consistent and and really give people that are interested, information, a glimpse into what I do, how I do it, and my thought processes, and then the thoughts and services of others who were in the space as well. I think it would be really boring if I just sit here and just talk nonstop about myself. But I think if I'm able to find that balance between introducing people and their ideas into the space, it would be amazing. So yeah, right now this is the beginning of a new chapter in my content creation, especially around the podcast. The other spaces I'm still working out, but this um, it's going to be different. And not only that, I am dedicating a complete separate page for the podcast, so to not mix it up with all my other content. Um, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what those of you who've stopped me and said, "Hey, I've seen your podcast. I love what you're doing. I've seen your content on LinkedIn. I love what you're doing," um, and have given me suggestions and ideas. And the biggest suggestions and ideas have really been centered around consistency. Keep creating, and yeah, it's time for me to start creating. So right now, this episode that you're listening to, I will post. And I will post today and in my new page. And I'm going to use um, spaces like Facebook and LinkedIn to publicize what I'm doing and hopefully build an audience of educators who who want to hear and hopefully share their thoughts around what I talk about at my topics. Um, yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this episode to a close. And I promise to return shortly with another episode. The only thing I'm trying to figure out is this, and I'm going to ask you to help me out with this. And this is going to be something that's going to happen over the course of probably the next couple of weeks, determining whether or not I should be posting. I know this is crazy. Daily, every other day, weekly, monthly. And I'm asking myself this because um, I struggle with consistency because of life. Things happen. And I think putting myself on a schedule that I commit to, and I'm willing to commit to this channel for the next 6 months. I had a friend of mine who challenged me and said, "Listen, if you do this for the next 6 months, all the way through the month of June, you will see a tremendous difference." And the problem is, um, often worrying that what I'm about to say, what I'm saying, nobody cares about. And I think that's the imposter syndrome that we all go through when we are creating content, whether it's for social media or we're writing or we're creating music or we're creating art. There's always this worry about, what does this mean, and would it bring value to anyone? And I have to remind myself that at the end of the day, it should only matter to me. And if audience develops from it, then the audience will now dictate, you know, in its own way, the wind that will blow my process in what direction to make sure that I'm helping the most people possible. Because at the end of the day, this is also about helping people. So yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your time. This is Uche Njoku. I'm coming to you right now from the Berkshires. I'm not at home. I'm in Kripalu, relaxation and meditation retreat with school leaders from across the country, from New York, across the country, New York City and Chicago. And maybe my next episode this evening, I'll share with you this space. I can show you the space per se. I can only record from my room to ensure people's privacy. But I can talk to you about my personal experience here at Kripalu. This is my third time back here as a principal, and why it's important to engage in meditative practices and restorative practices as a leader, as an educator, as a human being. All right. Thank you again. This is Uche Njoku, Sneaker Principal, and we'll talk soon again. Be well.